Stetson isn't a very big guy, and you see how picked apart Bryce Young has gotten already. Stetson's the same size as Young or smaller. He was a great college quarterback, and that doesn't always carry over to the NFL. That's from Senior Bowl's CEO or executive director, I should say, Jim Nagy, who's been around the block for a while with the Senior Bowl. Stetson did not play there over the weekend. And what Jim was talking about was in a conversation with Paul Feinbaum earlier in February before the game, because Paul asked about Stetson, and here's a little bit more of what Jim Nagy had to say. He said he can throw on the run, and he does have a pretty good arm. He's going to run in the 4.5s, which I think is true as well. There's a lot to like. He's super smart. The Georgia staff will tell you that. And then he says, I think it's down to the physical tools part. He doesn't fit the prototype. That doesn't mean he can't play. The odds were stacked against him to play in the SEC, and he's proven those doubters wrong. Going into the season, talking about going into the 2022 college season, he was a priority free agent for teams. By the end of the year, he was creeping into being draftable. It was mostly sixth or seventh round, more fifth to seventh round range. Hey, make sure you're picking up Double Dogs. It's got a lot about Stetson in it, including the cover. Get in, make sure you get your copy reserved now. It's going to the printer, so these are getting sent out sooner than later. Probably the end of February if you ordered early. If you just now ordered, it's going to be more in early March. I said late February. I think I may have said early February, but they'll be on the way. But anyway, Double Dogs it will be out and about soon. It will also be at Red Zone when I get the shipment in. But there's a process and so forth. But I think what Jim Nagy's saying here is correct. You know, he's not just making this up as he goes along. He's talking with NFL teams. I mean, the Senior Bowl is a big deal. It gives people the ability to, NFL teams, the ability to take a very hard look at players that are going to get drafted or going to be, as he said, priority free agents. Stetson Bennett is not a prototypical quarterback, and there's a lot of discussion about Stetson versus Bryce Young. There are a few differences with him and Bryce Young. Bryce Young's arm talent, I think, is better than Stetson's is. Bryce Young plays, more consistently better than Stetson. But in terms of the physicality, it's hard to make the argument that you would have Bryce Young as a top, 15 draft pick. Let's give a pretty wide margin there as a top 15 draft pick, and you don't have Stetson in your top 4 rounds. Well, why is that? I, I don't know. Um, I mean, I really legitimately mean that. I mean, Bryce Young was a high level recruit. Everyone understood where he was coming from out of the box from California. They knew that he was a big deal, um, and it took him a little bit of time to become the starting quarterback at Alabama. Mac Jones beat him out in 2020, which was somewhat expected, I think, after Mac played at the end of 19. But, um, Stetson's journey to where he's at today is not at all the same as Bryce Young's. I think the other thing, and people are not discussing this as much, Stetson is 25. That means that let's just say he has a breakthrough, time and so forth in the NFL, and he becomes a starting quarterback. He is the new Tom Brady. He has 4 fewer years than everybody else that's getting drafted, basically. I mean, most guys getting drafted are 20 or 21 years old, and that matters in this league. It matters a lot in the NFL because by the end of his first contract, whether he's a first round guy or not, Stetson is going to be 30 years old, which is officially the time when they're looking to get rid of you in the NFL, if not before that. So um, I think all of those things added up knock him down in terms of where he'll get drafted. With all of that said, the person I would compare Stetson's situation to more than anyone that's come out of Georgia in the last 10 years is David Andrews. And David Andrews was the center at Georgia. His last game, I think, was the Belk Bowl in 14, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember everything. But uh, David should have been drafted much higher than he was. And as soon as the Patriots got the capability to free agent him and get him to agree to those terms, he took it. Stetson Bennett needs the right fit for him. It's not Chicago. It's not um, Kansas City. It's not places that already have entrenched starting quarterbacks. It's places that are trying to figure out what their next 3 years are going to be like and who the quarterback will be. The place he needs to go is the place that doesn't have the right quarterback right now. That will lead him to the ability to do what he did at Georgia, which is prove his worth. Um, that's what he needs. David Andrews, I think it took him about a half a season to start playing, but that happened because the starting center at the time got injured, if memory serves correct. And then from that point forward, they chose not to re-sign the center who had been injured, if my memory is correct. And David took it on from there. Eventually, he became a captain. Eventually, he was the captain of a team that won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. I think it was Tom Brady's last Super Bowl win there. I'm not sure. Somebody else can do all that. But there are guys at Georgia who they need the right fit. Clint Bowling was a great example of this at offensive line. Clint went late in the third or early fourth, whatever it was. I mean, the guy was in the league for 10 years. It's different at quarterback. It's different at quarterback. There are two offensive guards on every single team for Clint Bowling to make it. There's only one starting quarterback, and so folks can get kind of mad or whatever, or feel like Stetson's been disrespected. But the same group that just drafted 5 guys in the first round from Georgia is the same group that's drafting now. And the NFL doesn't have anything out for anybody in particular. They want really good players. And when you are smaller, it's problematic for them. They have a hard time. There's a lot of groupthink in the NFL. That's what led to black quarterbacks not really playing for a long time in the league. That's what has led to the college system taking a long time to get to the NFL. Um, you know, there's a lot of groupthink in the league, but in terms of players, um, so-called making it, there really is a normal way of doing things. And that normal way has worked for a long time for those 32 teams in the league. Johnny Manziel, who Stetson is probably as close to in terms of playing style, although he's a little more, controlled, I guess you could say. Um, there was a lot of skepticism about him, and it turned out to be true. Now, uh, is Stetson a better quarterback than Johnny Manziel? Like playing quarterback? Maybe, maybe. Um, but we don't know. I think it's healthy to have skepticism about someone like Stetson. I had plenty of skepticism about Tua and his ability to be durable. I think that's a question mark for guys who are smaller. I mean, Tua is a smaller person. Stetson's smaller. Same thing goes with Bryce Young. I mean, when you're playing that position, there's not a lot of Kyler Murrays out there. And these guys don't run like Kyler Murray either. I mean, that guy is different on that front. There's just not a lot of folks that can do what that there's not a lot of folks that can do what any franchise NFL quarterback can do. Um, if if that were the case, we'd have more than 18 franchise NFL quarterbacks. Right now, there are 32 teams, and there's probably not everybody really has a franchise quarterback. So I think for Stetson, the best case scenario is getting to a situation where um, things aren't settled. You know, Atlanta would be one spot as an example. Carolina, anything in the NFL, NFC South would probably a good place to be because they just don't have quarterbacks there right now in those four teams. But I think what Jim Nagy's saying is adequately true. I also think that what he's pointing out here with the odds were stacked against him to play in the SEC, and he proved those wrong, is correct as well. It's just that the NFL is the next step up above the SEC, and it's going to be challenging for Stetson to find his place. I do think he will get drafted. Now, I thought he would go to the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and I thought he would get drafted, and that was in September or whenever. So I'm sticking by that. I think he's got a really good chance to get drafted, but now the combine is going to matter a lot for Stetson.